Welcome back. I thought it'd be fun to do some redrafts. I wasn't even in the league in 2026, but I figured it would be a good year to start and just do top 10. I didn't want to waste a ton of time doing like 30 picks or something. I think it'd be just fun to see the 5 or 10 best players from each draft, the stars and where they came from in the draft. So I put together a redraft here for 2026. I thought I didn't really want to go back farther than that. I thought it'd be so long; those guys would be well into their 30s, and it was kind of obvious. So I thought this was enough time where there's still some kind of late bloomers, and there's still a little bit of fun moving around. As you'll see later in this list, some guys that kind of just got good the last year or two. So I thought it just seemed like a good year. So we'll start it off here. The first pick of the draft was Juan Figueroa here. He was a Miami first baseman, college guy, just a slugger out of college, pretty advanced, low eye, but really good bat everywhere else. And that's exactly what he turned into. He got Miami a huge trade haul when they traded him away. But there's one player in this draft that ended up just being a superstar and pretty much inarguably the best pitcher in baseball over the last 5 to 10 years is Ron Brumley. This guy has just been an absolute monster. 40 career WAR. I got the screenshot on the page here. You can see he has stuff, movement, control, elite fastball. Throws 100 miles an hour as a lefty. Just ridiculous, ridiculous stats. The guy is just a workhorse, setting modern day records for innings pitched. 5 years in a row leading the league, and that's just outrageous. So the guy is just phenomenal, and you don't really have to explain that pick too much. Just an absolute superstar that's won multiple playoff series off multiple starts in the last couple of years. They made a few World Series off his back, so just an amazing talent. So as good as Figueroa has been, I have to go with Ron Brumley here, number one overall. If Miami was in a redraft, I think. Okay, so next up we have Tristan Miles. So the original pick was Gene Brault, and he has been solid. He's kind of like a little better than replacement level player, but the hit tool never really came along enough. It's like a 35 contact, 55 power type that can play some left field. He can survive in center, but not really a true center fielder anymore. So just pretty solid, not a total bust, but Tristan Miles, I think, has to be the pick here. He's got 21 career WAR. Tristan Miles is unbelievable. He has 5 pitches that are all really good, an elite repertoire there, and just really solid across the board. If you look at his career FIPS, the last couple of years have been in the mid threes. He's close to 5 WAR back-to-back seasons, 5 years in a row. As you can see, 4.6 WAR, 3.4. The whips are always at about 1.2. Just the model of consistency. He's in his late 20s. He's on a really team-friendly contract that I think he's only making $13 million this year for how good he is. So the guy has turned into kind of like Brumley, where they're just in the real life drafts. You don't really take pitchers quite this high because they bust so often, but in a redraft, kind of knowing what ended up happening of their career, just I think it would be fair to say you take like an ace like Miles. Over some of those top position players. So he would go second overall, I think, in a redraft. So next up we have TJ Predinger went third overall to Philly, and he didn't really turn out too much. He was a pitcher that I don't think has accomplished a ton. I think in the redraft here, you'd have to go with Figueroa here. Figueroa in Philly would just be ridiculous. Figueroa could easily have been number one overall in a redraft in a lot of drafts if they didn't have like a Hall of Fame type player like Brumley and pretty high level starting pitcher like Miles. It's pretty close on these two. As you can see in the career WAR, it's just so close. But I figured that San Diego would probably go with the top-notch arm over the bat at the first base. But Figueroa in a redraft fitting in Philly would just be ridiculous. His power and contact in that stadium put up some historic numbers. He pretty much already still is in Milwaukee now. Again, Milwaukee traded for him in a big haul, so pretty cool fit there. I think Philly getting the slugging first baseman. I can't imagine how ridiculous they would have been if they would have got Figueroa and or another elite bat there to go with Burns and some of those guys they had in that World Series run. So pretty scary thought. Next up, we have Stu Kitt. This was fun. The GM before me picked Stu Kitt fourth, and funny enough, in a redraft, he fit right there. Also going fourth. I wouldn't change that pick, I don't think, if that was being redone. Stu Kitt has been one of the best offensive players in baseball. I don't think I showed Figueroa there, so I'll show him before, by the way. The last pick, just ridiculous. If you look at the doubles there, outrageous. 51 doubles in Miami, and then close to 50 the next year. when he was 2 years later, and close to 40 both of those years, and then 43 and 47 since he went to Milwaukee and just started crushing. So ridiculous stats, almost 45, 50 home run type numbers back-to-back years. OPS the last 3 years has been 170, 149, 149 for the WRC plus. So just an outrageous offensive player. That's why I had him going above Kit, even though it's pretty close. Originally, I was going to go with Kit, but Kit, anyways, they're real close. So Kit going fourth was a cool fit to Baltimore. He's turned into an elite offensive player. Had a 6 WAR season twice already before the age of 26. Just insane. He kind of seems to perform ridiculously good on every other year. But yeah, he's pretty much the best base runner in baseball. He steals a ton of bases every year. A 30-30 threat pretty much every season. Like almost made that 30-30 club last year. 29 home runs, just one short. 2 years in a row, he's at 29 home runs. Just missed out on it 2 years in a row by one, which is unfortunate. But yeah, just an incredible player. Had a 142 and 157 121 WRC plus seasons sprinkled in there. 3 of those years before his 26th birthday again. Just absolute ridiculous. Mashes righties and then is an elite base runner. Can hold his own in the corner outfield. Just incredible offensive weapon. One of the best in baseball and can really hit anywhere 1 through 4. So pretty special skill set there. Next up in the redraft, we have Dave Bailey going 5th overall. He was drafted 33rd overall. Oh, I forgot to talk about that actually with these picks, by the way. So Brumley was originally selected round 117 overall out of college. Tristan Miles was a second rounder. Yeah, Figueroa was the first overall pick. Kit ended up going 4th, like I said, in back-to-back drafts. The red here is identifying guys that are in both lists, by the way. And then Dave Bailey was taken 33rd overall, first pick of the supplemental round, and he has just been incredible. If you look at Dave Bailey's skill set here, he is an elite strikeout control combination pitcher with some pretty good movement, 100 miles an hour. Ratings-wise, he is probably even better than Tristan Miles, but Miles got the nod as second overall, just the long-term consistency. But Bailey would have been a high school guy. He's 3 years younger than Brumley and Miles, so it'll be interesting to see if you're to redraft in a couple years from now and look at who accomplished more before the age of 30. But Bailey is coming into his prime here and looks poised to be in the Cy Young contention race every year with an top-notch defense behind him. Really good team. Should put up some crazy stats. Maybe be a threat for 20 wins a few times here. Just amazing talent. So he could probably have actually gone 3rd overall. It was real close between those 3 players. I just figured with the career these 2 have had, they kind of deserved the tiebreaker over the 9 career WAR. I know it's not really fair because, well, it is kind of, I was going to say with Kit was also a high school guy, but Figueroa and some of those guys are college guys, so the career WAR is not really fair when they're 3 years younger. But again, it's real close. So I think you can make an argument those 3 or 4 picks probably could go in really any order. I wouldn't argue if Bailey went second, but I think for Bailey, again, it's just more ratings at this point than what he's proven. So I think at this point, I was happy to just put him 5th, but yeah, he's pretty freaking good and could probably go higher. Palto is actually a pretty good major league reliever, but not quite good enough to go in the top 5 or 10 picks in a redraft, I don't think. So next overall pick was Chris Birch. Chris Birch is the original pick to the Chicago Cubs, but in a redraft, I think we're going to go with Tim Benny here. Tim Benny has just accomplished quite a bit more at this point in his career. 12 career WAR. He was a 21st round pick to St. Louis. Just an amazing late round TCR. If you look here at his profile, he had a 5.2 WAR season last year, almost 200 innings pitched, a 2.9 ERA. Came up just short in the Cy Young. I think he finished 2nd or 3rd. The incredible 6 WAR last season, and then this year he was not quite as good, but still really solid. 3.6 ERA with almost 200 innings, and so that's really 3 years of really good baseball in a row. So he is just one of the best lefties in the game. Major strikeout potential. Doesn't quite have the movement of a few of these arms above him. That's kind of ratings wise, and the mentals aren't as good. So there's a few small things I think that push those other guys like Miles and Bailey ahead of him, but again, he's accomplished a lot, and he could make a pretty good argument with the year he had last season and World Series ring, and he's only 25 years old, so much younger than those guys. You can make a real argument that he could be up a few spots too. So again, there's a lot of a lot of different ways you could do these lists, but I thought I wasn't too picky with it. I just kind of wanted to group it up, and I'm sure everyone would have a different opinion, whoever did this list. Next up, we have Doug Parnell. Doug Parnell in a redraft has turned into pretty much a top 5 reliever in baseball, maybe even top 2 or 3. Guy is outrageous strikeout and control combination with pretty good movement. Just limits the hits like absolutely nobody's business. He had a 3.03 FIP last year playing as a pitcher in Coors, 37 shutdowns, 100 innings as a reliever, 32.8% strikeout rate, as you can see on the screen. Just outrageous numbers across the board. Pretty much could be a starter too. He has that 35 stamina with 4 or 5 pitches, so he can be like a stopper type and just played a bunch of different roles. It's too bad that he lost a little bit of stamina. I think at one point he was like 40 or 45 stamina, so real close to being like an ace type pitcher. But a bullpen ace on a World Series contention team is pretty valuable. So he I know you normally say the 7th is pretty high to draft a reliever, but like if you think of the impact those guys in real life in their primes had, like Chapman and some of those guys, it's just incredible value. Again, they're more valuable the better the team is, because you bring a guy like that in 8th or 9th inning of a playoff game and shut the door. So it's just a lot different than him being on like a 65-70 win team. So him on Colorado is pretty nasty. So anyways, I think if Pittsburgh went with that, they're been a playoff team pretty much every year. Just the last few years, that'd be a really good fit there. I think Toronto originally took him 18th overall. So next up we have Chris Birch. Chris Birch is going to go to the Mets in a redraft. Chris Birch is a late bloomer. As you can see here, he only has 4.5 career WAR. He went 6th overall originally as a top-notch college third baseman. Really took his time. Had a couple real slow start years in the majors, hitting 190 and 170, but turned into one of the better third basemen in the league. Third base is one of the shallowest positions. There's not a ton of defensive studs there that have a pretty big bat, like an all-around type player. Usually it's one or the other. A lot of teams go defensive specialists there. A few teams have some like 45 range, 60 arm guys. He is just a really good all-around guy there. He has 50 range, 80 arm, top-notch defense at that position with a real solid bat. If you look the last 2 years, his WRC pluses 130 and 120. So the fact that he's that good at defense, that good of arm, and just seems like one of those players that you just think with that overall profile will age really well and just be a real solid third baseman into his mid-30s. I thought that was a really good spot to him for him to go to the Mets. Rocky Leffler just didn't develop the defense enough for second base and didn't develop the power enough to play first base. So he ended up being kind of a tweener and struggling quite a bit last year in the Mets stadium, where it's hard as an offensive player unless you have a ton of gap power. So Rocky wouldn't go in the top 10 in a redraft, unfortunately. But Chris Birch, I really liked him as a late bloomer. I thought that was cool. Next up, we have Houston. They originally took an arm who just never developed any control. I think he's got like 25 control, but really electric stuff and movement, so you could see what was appealing about him. In the redraft, I got them going with Mike Head. Mike Head on the Brewers went 20th overall originally, and he's stuck with the Brewers his whole career and turned into an awesome all-around player. Mike Head has top-notch bat to ball, 70 contact, 70 avoid K, so he makes a ton of contact. He hit 326 2 years ago, and then last year he hit 288. Some really good athleticism once he gets on base, and he's pretty much like the best base stealer in all of baseball. If you look here, he has career-wise 40 stolen bases in the majors, only 3 caught. So he just doesn't quite steal enough because his aggressiveness is only 60, but his base stealing ability is 75. So he just is one of those guys that probably could get 35 stolen bases if you really jacked up the strategies for his aggressiveness and hit him lead off or something. I think he could be one of the like a Stu Kit type value, really similar profile. Doesn't have quite the pop in his bat. He did hit 17 home runs in home run friendly Milwaukee's ballpark last year, but in 120 games. But yeah, just an awesome offensive weapon to have a guy that does that much bat on ball, and then once he gets on base can move around the base pass so well. And he's a really solid fielder, a really high level left fielder. Can get away with some solid right field, which he's had to in the last year or two. They've had some injuries in the corner outfield, and he can even survive in center for like 15 games a year. So really, really cool overall profile. I really liked Mike Head there. So 20th overall pick as well, lived up to the expectations. And the last pick I have here, I just did 10 picks. Cincinnati took a first baseman that just didn't turn out at all, unfortunately for them, but Ken Gigolo sure has. San Francisco took him 5th round, and he's 149th overall. He has just been unbelievable. I think I just had him on the screen here in this. I'll go to this one. If you look at his numbers, unreal. 71 innings in 2030 with a 1.7 ERA. Top-notch defense behind him. Top-notch stats. Just a really good fit there in San Francisco. Pretty much just gives up very limited walks too with the good control for a reliever. 55. Has that nasty cutter changeup combo. Both pitches move quite a bit, I'd imagine. And has just that movement so high with 100 miles an hour, just be such a nasty combination as a reliever. And 70 stand mile, so he can pitch all the time. He has quite a bit of injuries last season. 27 innings pitched, but the year before was 57 innings, 71 innings. And then 2031, I guess there's some more injuries. So unfortunately, the injuries holding him back a bit. He's got the fragile tag, but a lefty with that kind of impact so far in his career, I know the injuries are quite a bit, but I actually didn't realize when I made the list there was quite so many injuries. His games missed, but doesn't really matter. It's not like he's blowing his arm out twice or something. He's just has pitched still quite a bit of innings for a reliever, so I'm not going to hold it against him too much. But yeah, just with how much of an impact he's had and how ridiculously low those ERAs are and the FIPS, just the impact is too high to drop him much farther than this. An elite bullpen arm is pretty cool to have. So I think in this draft you can see a clear top, I guess like top 6 is the real impact guys, and then a little bit of drop off. You get some really good players here in Birch and Head and Gigolo and Parnell, but position wise, maybe not so much of an impact. But those top 6 guys are real superstars. So it was quite the interesting draft, and there's still quite a bit of good players after this if I was to extend this 15 picks or something. But I think I'll do 10 picks, and I'll just do each of these drafts in the next few episodes, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. I don't know if I'll do those last two because it's so recent. I'll take a peek at those classes and see if that's worth doing. But definitely, I think it'd be a lot of fun to do 26 through 30. So hopefully you guys tune into those two and enjoy the episodes. Cheers, guys.